Hi, this is Jim Musser with Upstream Ministries, and this is my March 25th, 2026 video on views from downstream. And I just want to share a story of a conversation I had with a pastor this past Sunday. He was a guest speaker. There was a conference at our church, ran for the weekend, and he was one of the featured speakers, so they had him preach on Sunday. And he spoke about the way in which so many people view the church. And in his phrasing, he said, yeah, we rock it out for 20, 30 minutes. We have a TED Talk, and then we head home. And he said the church needs to look at church differently. And he emphasized the fact of being a community of believers, of followers of Jesus, and that the focus really needed to be on individual, needs, community needs, serving. And so after the service, because I agreed with all of that, and so after the service, I sought him out and just said, so what's your solution to this? Because you're saying that people come in with this idea of what church is supposed to be. And I said, it seems like to me that that's what the church has taught them over the last 4 or 5 decades, that it is coming in, having music, having a talk, and then going home. And particularly in the last 10 years, that's just increased exponentially. That's basically what churches do now. They have a quote unquote worship time where they play music on a stage and people sing on stage. The congregation, it depends if they sing or not. Sometimes it's so loud it doesn't do any good to sing. And then the pastor gets up and gives a talk of 30, 40 minutes. And then everybody goes home. And I said, and he really didn't have an answer for it. He said, yeah, we just need to emphasize that in small groups and things. But I said to him, I said, okay, but people's introduction and understanding of the church is the worship service. Now, that may not be the best way, but that is indeed what people think of when they think of church. I passed a sign this morning that said, come to church. Well, what did they mean? They meant come Sunday morning to a church service. That's come to church, particularly in the South. And so he just didn't have really an answer. And what I realized is that there are a lot of discipleship movements or emphasis in trying to get discipleship instituted into the church. But what I've realized is that it's trying to insert it into an existing structure. And that is a very tough thing to do, because the structure is just going to crowd out what you're trying to do. And if you're really wanting to emphasize discipleship, as I've said before, you're going to have to cut down probably the sermon. You're going to have to make the worship service very different, very much more interactive. You're going to have to make small groups much more interactive, not just having a teacher leading a Bible study. Sunday school, if you still have Sunday school classes, the teacher has got to stop teaching the whole time and begin to get interaction and to do some application and enable people to apply these things. And again, I've said before, the structure of the church right now really emphasizes passivity. And the service is typically is inward focus. We have greeters, we have ushers, we have people to collect, offerings, help with the children's ministry, help with the youth ministry. Maybe there's some emphasis working in the community, but most churches that I have been a part of and had experience with or just knew about, the bulk of the emphasis is on serving inside the church institution, the local church institution, not outside the church. Now, I know there are exceptions, and I'm not trying to say this is the way everything is. But what I realize, again, is we've got what I say, a real flawed structure that we've had for a long time. And we're not going to be able to really introduce discipleship unless we're willing to step back and say, okay, if this is our priority, which I think Jesus made it the priority, go and make disciples, then we have to step back and look how the structure impedes that process, because we can't just try to work on the fringes to try to get discipleship in. If it's going to be center to all that we do, then we've got to step back and begin to undo a lot of these structures that we've set up. And that, I know that's radical, but we're never going to accomplish discipleship that leads to transformation of life without doing some things like that. Because if we're trying to work around a 40 minute sermon and a 30-minute worship time and Sunday school structures and small group structures that really don't change much, then it's going to be an uphill battle, which it has been for a long time for people like me who are trying to encourage things to be done differently. And so I just wanted to just share that with you today, and particularly for church leaders and those that are have some say in the church and how it goes, to really begin to encourage leaders to step back and look at the structure and see what needs to be changed in order to make discipleship, true discipleship, transformative discipleship at the center of all that we do. That's a big challenge, but I think we have to do it as a church in America. We're flailing about, and we're not making the impact that I think we often think we are, and particularly long-term impact. So I'm going to leave you with that, and we'll see you back here in a week. Okay, have a great day, and blessings to you.